Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Moses Salami. I'm the communications chair for NASI New Jersey. So we welcome you tonight for our general body meeting and our operations panel event with some experienced leaders. We're just going to wait a few minutes just to let people on in. We have a lot of RSVPs tonight. So we want to just get started in a few minutes. So hang tight, grab a glass of water, a snack, a bite to eat, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. So hang tight. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Nelson, and I currently serve as the NASI New Jersey chapter president. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to our chapter general body meeting this evening. For those who may not be as familiar with NASI New Jersey, our mission is to improve the health services rendered to minority communities while also improving and really facilitating Black executives into executive roles in healthcare. As part of that, we have focused on 3 to 4 strategic priorities that we're really looking at for 2022 to ensure that we're providing opportunity and really ensuring that our members are engaged in the professional development as well as the public policy forum that we've been establishing here in the state of New Jersey. Thus far for 2022, our strategic focus areas are the following. First, we do have a professional development initiative, which is currently being chaired by Sean Matthews and Ashley Clark. We do have a mentorship initiative which will be rolled out in the beginning of the second quarter by mid-April. So please look out for more information related to the mentorship initiative. We're looking for mentors. We're also looking for a number of mentees to be able to associate and match those that are looking to gain more understanding in different aspects of executive leadership, as well as a number of administrative positions in healthcare and beyond. Additionally, we have a public policy committee, which is currently chaired by our Vice President of Operations, Loviel Porter. And Loviel currently chairs this overall public policy initiative with the core focus of looking at maternal health and bridging the disparities that we're currently facing here in the state of New Jersey. As we are well aware, New Jersey really fares significantly poorly when it comes to maternal health disparities across all throughout the nation. So we have tremendous opportunity to work with various state organizations and help support those core initiatives as we move forward. We also have a membership committee which is being currently chaired by our treasurer, Chase Stewart, and there's tremendous opportunity to be engaged and really become a part of that committee. So we're looking for a number of views, representations, and also understanding what's really pertinent to our members. So please feel free to reach out to our committee chairs and really let's figure out how we can help you all become engaged and help you have the opportunity to really influence how we're affecting change here in the state of New Jersey. And more importantly, we also have a marketing initiative that's currently being chaired by our Vice President of Strategic Marketing, Moses. So we're incredibly excited about the work that we're going to be doing here in 2022. Our goal is to ensure that we're providing a wonderful platform for our members. We would like to have our members engage in each of those committees, and we certainly would like to have your input be represented as part of the core mission that we're doing here in the state of New Jersey. I would certainly be remiss if I did not acknowledge our sponsor, the Positive Community, along with our institutional members, RWJ Barnabas Health, as well as the Atlantic Health System, that are now currently our institutional members. Such is a possibility for any organization in any industry that is looking to support minority representation in leadership positions, and we really welcome the opportunity to extend that opportunity, that possibility for any organization across all industries. So if you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out to any members of our team, particularly myself, and we'll make sure that we can answer your questions and help you with having that information. The one last element which I'd like to mention is our Board of Directors initiative. For 2022, we are looking to have a number of our senior executives who are looking to give back, and we're looking to mentor, who are looking to really influence how we're bringing and training the next generation of leaders to be engaged as part of our Board of Directors. The opportunity here is to influence how NACI New Jersey is conducting its operations and really to hold us accountable. So please feel free to, again, reach out to any of our members of our leadership team, particularly myself or Moses, really to learn more about how you can actually be involved in that process, as we would certainly like to have your input, your views, and as well as your insights represented as part of that overall process. As we move forward, we will be partnering with other organizations to support some of the initiatives that are happening in April in honor of Black maternal mortality and disparities, to really bring awareness to that in the state of New Jersey for April. And in May, we're excited to really share that we will be having a networking opportunity and a mixture where a number of our members will be coming together just so we can have an opportunity to fellowship together, learn from each other, and really connect with one another. More information will be forthcoming, and we'll make sure you all have that information way ahead of time. In closing for my remarks, I will certainly like to make reference of the NACI Educational Conference, which is being held this year in New Orleans on October 12th to October 14th. There's a lot more information on that on our website, so feel free to take a look at the NACI New Jersey website, as well as the general national chapter, to be able to register and also gain more of that information. So without further ado, I would certainly like to pivot now to our panel for tonight. We're extremely excited about we have a robust group of individuals, very dynamic leaders across different industries that are now represented here tonight, and we're really looking forward to their insights, as well as a number of key pointers that they will be sharing with us tonight. So we highly encourage you to engage, ask questions, and certainly you'll have an opportunity to engage as part of our Q&A later this evening. So without further ado, I would certainly like to pass it over to our moderator, Bryson Palmer, who will be leading our overall panel this evening. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate that introduction and that general body meeting updates. This is NACI, and this is what it's about. Good evening, NACI family, and welcome. It's just great to be here virtually, but this is, again, the village that we are existing in, and NACI is truly that. It's a family, it's a village. In order for us to tackle the mission that Frank talked about, These are the types of educational opportunities that we have to embrace and have to participate in order to provide ourselves and our teams and our organizations with the resources to address these disparities and to make sure that we're on a continued path for learning and growth. I'm excited tonight to introduce later in a few short moments the panel, very dynamic group, but this is going to be a dialogue. It's going to be a really robust discussion. And again, the topic is the role of operations in optimizing organizational success, lessons learned from industry leaders on managing teams and navigating challenges. So before we get started, I do want to share that I proudly serve as the Assistant Vice President of Operations at Newark Beth Israel Medical Center and Children's Hospital in New Jersey. And, you know, a quick testimony about NACI. I've been involved in this organization since grad school, so over 15 years. And shortly after graduating grad school, I did not have a job. I lived in Atlanta, and I was networking. I was getting cards and doing everything that people, my mentors told me to do. I went to a NACI Atlanta meeting at Piedmont Healthcare one evening. And long story short, I ended up interacting with the Chief Human Resources Officer there that evening. And had I not been there, had it not been for NACI, I would have not met this individual and ultimately ended up keeping in touch and getting a administrative residency with Piedmont Healthcare that has paved the way for the rest of my career. I share that because NACI truly does matter. It is an organization that really does value the family of healthcare professionals that are involved in it and gives back not only professionally, but to the community. And that's my testimony. And I'm sure there are plenty other stories out there, but what I do hope your takeaway from tonight is that NACI is your village. This is your professional group and your professional family. Leverage it, pour into it, and hopefully you will gain some gems, as I know I will, from this evening's dynamic panel discussion. So with that, let's go ahead and introduce our Bay Area amazing and dynamic panelists. I'm impressed by this group in particular because not only are they leaders within their organizations, they're very much leaders in the community, and some of you know that. But being that it is Women's History Month and that tomorrow, in fact, is the last day, it's only fitting, Marianne, that we start off with you. So as an introduction, please do share with our audience a little bit about your journey and what you currently do.
Okay, so as he said, my name is Marianne Jackson. I live in the city of Newark and have for 40 years. I currently serve as the Vice President of Process Management for Prudential. I've been at Prudential for 25 years, so I've been doing this a long time. I work in their project management office, but especially in their global enterprise services, which means I work on projects that affect the entire company, both domestic and globally. How I started, though, was a very different journey. I initially did sales for a consumer goods company. And what I learned there is the power of relationships and emotionally connecting with people. And that's a transferable skill I took everywhere with me. I actually had a health concern. Prudential did my disability insurance, and then I ended up working at Prudential when I started to go back to work. There, I worked in their claims operation, so very different than what I was doing before. But because I had the relationship building abilities, I quickly got asked to do audits and other projects. I ended up setting up a division for them that is still functional to this day. And in that, I learned critical thinking. I learned how to holistically think about things, both short and long term. And that is the key of operations. So I've been in underwriting, I've been in financial services, I've been in business and analytics. I've been all throughout the company in different roles, but it really set me up for this project management role I have now, where I have a team and we're responsible for the growth and the transformation of Prudential. So that's how I got here. It has been a very interesting journey, but I'm glad I went through the operations piece because now I know what my staff is going through, and we can have those types of conversations, not just on a person level, but on a process level.
Wow, Marianne, thank you. And we're going to dig a bit deeper into that relationship building component a little more into the conversation. Next on our panel is Calvin Ledford Jr. Calvin, please share with the group.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Nasi, for having me, and welcome other panelists. Again, my name is Calvin Ledford. I am the president of the PSEG Foundation, as well as the director of corporate social responsibility. I've been with PSEG for 35 years. And yes, I had one of those Marianne journeys as well. I actually started what would absolutely be considered at the bottom. I started as a meter reader in the bargaining unit. And I have gone through every area of customer operations within public service. I've project managed teams. I've managed the call center and collection center. So I've moved around throughout my organization and organization's tenure. And I've always had the opportunity to be lucky enough to be engaged with and have an impact on the community. Prior to the current role that I'm in, I was the director of external affairs, and I led a team for all of North Jersey, who was responsible for maintaining and owning the relationships with all of the elected officials throughout the northern part of the state. So prior positions that I've had, prior experience that I've had, both internally and externally, have really positioned me well for the position that I'm in today, being responsible for corporate social responsibility. And a number of those external positions is throughout my career, I've been afforded the opportunity to participate on a number of boards. Currently, I'm the immediate past chairperson of Newark Regional Business Partnership Board. I'm a member of Leadership Newark's board. I'm also the vice chair of University Hospital Foundations Board. So I do have some familiarity with some operations, if you will, within the hospital. And again, welcome.
Thank you, Calvin. Last but certainly not least, Marlon Scott.
Yeah, I don't know how I can follow those two, but I'm going to try. So once again, my name is Marlon Scott. I work for Turner Construction Company. A little bit about myself. I went to school in Essex County my entire life, starting from kindergarten up to NJIT college. I graduated with a bachelor's in civil engineering. After that, I worked for Structure Tone for 2 years as a superintendent. And I left there and went to Turner. I've been here for almost 25 years now. And throughout Turner, I was in different roles, safety manager, lean manager, superintendent, engineer. And I'm currently a project manager at the North Beth Israel Master Plan Implementation Project. I see Bryson quite often in the TA in the hallways. Again, I'm the project manager on site. I think we have about 13 Turner staff there, including myself. And that's about it. That's my journey. I have questions too for both Calvin and Marianne. I'm starting to write it down. So I hope everybody has questions because I already have 3 that I want to know. So I'll be jumping on the bandwagon at the end, Bryson, because I got some stuff.
Thanks, Marlon. I'll tell you like we did everyone else, put your questions in the chat.
Okay. Okay. No special treatment, right? All right. Thank you, sir.
Not at all. Thank you all for that amazing introduction. One theme that resounds with me was the fact that all of you had done a variety of different jobs within your organizations. To me, that speaks to flexibility, adaptability, being present, and really accepting challenges, right? And what I do know, especially on the healthcare side, is that our organizations are very dynamic, right? They are bricks and mortar, but there are so many facets to operations that one can get involved in. And I think one highlight I just want to take away from the introductions is, especially for the healthcare folks, is you do exist in an industry that is not only care delivery, it's enabling departments, it's marketing, it's outreach, it's plant engineering, it's the physical structure of healthcare space. And these opportunities will come and they will go. But what you've heard from our panelists is that over time, throughout their experiences, is that they've rolled up their sleeves and they've done a variety of different tasks that have ultimately allowed them to get to the spaces that they are today. So certainly do appreciate your background and sharing a bit about your journey and where you are today. That is a great segue into our first question and our first formal question, which I'll pose to the group. And really what we want to highlight is high-performing organizations. At Prudential, at PSE&G, certainly at Turner, in all of our healthcare organizations, these are high-performing businesses. They're anchor institutions, right? They're very visible. They generate a lot of revenue. They have a lot of risk. But what, in your perspective, really defines that high-performing organization? Is it culture? Is it leadership? Is it the breadth of services that they deliver? Is it community outreach? So I believe that we want to make sure that we are defining high-performing organizations, and really interested in your take there. So let's go ahead, Marlon, and start with you. Interested in your definition of high-performing organizations.
Well, I think, you know what, it starts from the top, and we're talking about this yesterday, the leadership and the direction that they set. We have a CEO, Peter Davern, who we're listing a couple of things yesterday and what makes a person a great boss or someone that a great leader. And just some of the things we wrote down about him is empathy, compassion, being fair, being fearless. And when the social justice, when we were impacted last year, he was the first one to step foot and set direction and tell us what Turner is going to do, and how we're going to attack this social justice. So I think, and on my team, especially down in North Beth Israel, I would say most of them are all high performers. And I think it just goes to show, the leader of the company, and this is what we follow and who we follow, and he set the tone, and we're just following after him. So I think it all starts from the top, and then it works down from there. And just the expectations that he has, and then Turner has of their employees, and I think that's why we're able to do what we do every day.
Thank you, Marianne. Interested in your feedback here.
So I think all of them are important for a high performing culture or a high performing organization. One, the culture. You have to have a culture that has high ethics. You got to have high ethical standards. It has to be a place where people want to work, where they understand how their job aligns with the vision of the company and the organization, which means when it comes to leadership, as Marlon said, you have to have a dynamic leader that's clear, fair, objective, and is talent oriented, which means you got to have the right people in the right jobs at the right times, which goes back to you have to trust the ethics and the culture. And then when it comes to the scope of services, you do have to understand what you're not going to do, because we all have a statement of work and we have products, but you can't get into everything. So sometimes you have to take an essentialism approach, which means let me do a few things and do them well. So in that, all of them are important when you look at a high performing organization, at least in my opinion, because you're right, it comes from the top down, but that has to come from the bottom up too. And that's by having the guardrails so people know what they're working towards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go for it, Calvin.
So, Bryson, you heard all of the pieces. I mean, and just bringing those pieces together, right? So if I take the question literally, What defines it for me is an organization that consistently outperforms a competitor, consistently outperforms another organization of similar size with a similar mission. So inside of that statement is you can't benchmark against yourself. It's one thing to establish goals for your organization and even to be successful in exceeding them. But until you start to benchmark against other organizations that do similar work, you don't really know how well you're performing. So that's one thing. And the other things were mentioned, right? Leaders need to be very crisp in decision-making while allowing for employee empowerment. A culture has to be there of trust and employee engagement. And to your point, Mary, yes, you have to know what you're selling. You have to know what your core competency is, because you cannot accomplish everything.
That's great, panelists. Thank you for sharing that, and certainly components and principles that resound in healthcare, right? You know, in healthcare, we provide, or at least the mission is to provide quality care, equitable care, and the patient is in the center of that. But it all is dependent on the people who deliver that service, right? And I believe in healthcare, we have an appreciation for the residual impact that people make on the services that we provide. Said another way, if someone comes to work upset, they're not able to do their best job, because that ultimately is going to impact the level of empathy of services that they interact with our patients. So I certainly do appreciate your feedback on how complex it is. And Marianne, I do want to just dig into your response a little bit more and ask your opinion on how, in particular, how does operations impact ethics? How does operations impact, you know, those swim lanes? And what advice or you know, guidance could you share for this group who are, you know, leaders, early career, mid-career, seasoned executives? How can, in our seats, how can we impact that structure?
Okay, so operations is key, and operations is critical because the whole purpose in operations is to help identify best practices in business administrations and how you get things done. So you got to think of it, the core of that is finding the balance of the best practices to make sure that the company can maximize profits without degrading their reputation, brand, or culture. So we're at the key of how to get it done the right way. So the one thing that I challenge anybody that is new is to, one, learn to listen. Before you go into any conversation and you're going to give information, think about, why am I giving this information? It'll change the narrative and how you give it, and it will change your hearing and how you filter what you hear back. So that's one. Two, you have to be comfortable in who you are and the authenticity that's within you, because it's only one you. So I always challenge people who are on my team, especially when they're young associates, is, why are you at the table? Why am I having this conversation with you? I don't want you to do what everyone else does. I want you to bring that extra flavor that is who you are. So that's the piece, because I need that diversity of thought. If everyone in the room looks like me, talks like me, then only one of us is needed, because I'm not learning anything new. But in order to have that confidence, you have to be prepared. So you have to walk into a room and not just say, hey, I'm just going to put it all on the table. You have to be able to do your research, show that you can be a subject matter expert, but also understand, if you listen, what's needed and where those gaps are. Because sometimes there's niches that you can fill that brings up your value and can change the trajectory of the company.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for that. I know Atia is somewhere clapping her hands after you mentioned the diversity in thought component. She is a cheerleader and an advocate for not only diversity in thought, but diversity in race and gender and sexual orientation. And to your point, the more representation we have around the table, the more voices we have, and hopefully the more people listen. And that is a key takeaway. Thank you for that feedback. Let's move on to the next question here, which is an evolving landscape. And I think listening is also a key component here, but it's true that we have a new normal, right? The world as we knew it no longer exists. We are in a post-pandemic technology accelerated and very consumer-driven environment. I'm interested from our panelists, and Calvin, we're going to start with you, but in particular, what have you seen at PSE&G, or what have you done on your teams that have helped your leaders really navigate all of these changes, and how have you all adapted to it?
You mind if I make a quick comment on the last question?
Indeed, absolutely.
Yeah. No, because it's a real important question, and it was answered superbly. The only thing that I want to add is sometimes we need to be careful when we separate in our thinking operations from the C-suite group, the professional services group, the administrative group, right? Because by separating them at times, you can, unintended consequence, create an us and them. As much time that's spent on coming up with the strategic initiatives and the target for the corporation as a whole, equal amount of time or more should be spent on operationalizing the strategies. It shouldn't just be, we've come up with something, it looks good on the wall, and we're going to send an email to 200 folks that's a block away and tell them to go implement it. So I just wanted to compliment the comment that
Alvin, I'm working on a project right now to implement the strategy and the vision throughout the company and how to embed it. So you hit the nail on the head, and not being fearful of the C-suite. They want to hear what we have to say, especially at Pru. I mean, he'll see you in the cafeteria, the gym, the elevator, the ATM machine. You'll see him everywhere. So that is key. Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people don't put the two together.
No problem, all good. So to the other question, I think the key is adapting to the ever-changing world, right? You mentioned technology, but it's not only technology. We know, you all know better than me, you're in the healthcare industry, you know what the pandemic has brought out with regards to the impact and the impact to our communities. So as leaders, as future leaders, as people in operations, as people in C-suite or professional services, we need to adjust our service that we are either selling or providing to accommodate what's going on today. So earlier you mentioned social justice, and you didn't say it, but I'm sure in your mind was the unfortunate killing of George Floyd and the impact that it's had on all of us, regardless of the industry that you're in. It actually caused us to take a look at what pillars we had for the foundation, how they were defined and were they the right ones. And after doing some internal assessment, understanding what was taking place, not only in the state of New Jersey, the country, and globally, we decided that we needed to change them. And we changed our pillars. Environmental sustainability is one, social justice is another, and equity and economic empowerment is the third. So, I mean, we took the time to kind of redefine what we expected of nonprofits that would be reaching out for us, seeking grants, because this is where we wanted them to put their focus. And what it led to, full circle back to the health industry, what it led to, some of the areas, some of the organizations in the health industry that we have partnerships with, we informed them that we expected them to add to whatever programming they were providing to the community, something that we internally are calling wraparound services. So for us, that means we expect you to do some additional work in understanding why it is that maybe a family isn't making their healthcare appointments, why it is somebody isn't doing their annual follow-up. Go a step further, expend some resources in that space. For a lot of people, sometimes it might be something as simple, I'm saying simple for us, but it's not simple or small for them. It could be something as simple as transportation. I just couldn't get to the appointment on that day at that time for whatever reason. So that's an area that we've made a focus of ours inside of equity and economic empowerment. You need to be healthy in order to be able to work or to educate yourself. And so, we gave that a strong consideration, but it comes back to being adaptable, paying attention to what's going on around you. And as I said, one of the very, very first questions, don't benchmark against yourself. You'll lose every time over time. You got to find out what's going on with the people that you are either providing or selling a service to, and ask them how well you're doing, so you have an opportunity to improve.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Marlon, want to get you involved in this conversation. What recommendations do you have about meeting some of these demands and these changes, in particular about adaptability? I think you can speak to some of the nuances in construction for sure.
Right. So, again, I'm writing things down. Diversity of thought, we need that. So I'm stealing that one, Marianne. And then Calvin, I'm gonna come back to you with that wraparound service. I want to know more about that. But anyway, I think post-pandemic, the biggest struggle I think we're having now is getting people back in the office and people back at work. Because for the past year or 2 years, people have just been, working from home and functioning and being productive. So I think a way to, make it through that adaptation of what's happening out there, or social injustice or the pandemic. I think it all boils down to people, right? At the end of the day, and no matter what we do, all of us on this phone, no matter what industry you're in, it always it boils down to people. So getting people back to work and having those hard conversations. Employee may ask, why can't I work from home? And as a leader or manager, just learn not to just shut that person down and say, that's our policy and you better get in this office, but kind of understand. And I think Calvin alluded to is why? Just ask those questions. What are the benefits of working from home versus what are the benefits of working in the office? A lot of times we seem to forget that everyone has a different worldview and how they view things and how the work ethic might be. For me, myself, I have to be out in the field, out in the office in a trailer and doing work. I can't see myself working from home. But for other people, they may have health concerns, they may have childcare needs, they may have other things that they have to take account of. So I think the advice I give to people is, or individuals on this phone call, is to, those tough conversations have come out of this pandemic and the post-pandemic and what we've been dealing with. And I encourage you, just, at the end of the day, it's about people, and just talk to the individuals on your team and, why, and not to challenge them, but just to have an understanding of why they may see the need to work from home or work in the office.
Yeah, thank you, Marlon. You bring up a great point, and specifically in reference to the hearts and minds of the people who we work with. Everyone is bringing something to work with them, whether it's the post-trauma from the George Floyd summer of social justice, or perhaps it's a sick family member. But I do like the theme that you tried to amplify, or that you did amplify, was we have to listen to our team members, spend more time with them, so that we can directly address some of the the burdens that everyone is dealing with to some extent. Marianne, did you have any recommendations about how operational leaders can navigate these changing waters?
Yeah, I do. Part of it is, again, understanding what new innovations are out there. So an example, had someone gone to our IT department and said, we need to have 100% of our employees remote in 2 days, they would have said, nope, it'll take 8 months. It'll take them 8 months to assess it. Then it'll take them another 8 months to get it done. And then, in 18 months, they'll say, we can't do it. The pandemic hit and people automatically found a solution. So believe in the possible. And I know that sounds very idealistic, but it's more of set your mind to what can we do, not why you cannot do it. So that's one. Two, don't jump on every bandwagon just because it's there and it's the new fad. Really think of the short and long-term implications of making certain changes, because it may have other implications down the road. What Calvin said earlier about don't do things in a vacuum or siloed, try to do cross-functional teams. Talk to your financial person, talk to your marketing person, talk to your operations, talk to your healthcare person, talk to legal. That's when I worked at Procter & Gamble. We always had cross-functional teams, which I'm glad that was my foundation when I started my career, because it taught me very early that you cannot talk in a vacuum. So think about that, and don't be afraid to give suggestions, to say, hey, maybe we need to pull somebody from finance in this room. Hey, we need to bring in health services in this room. There may be some other implications. That's the other thing that I think is important for us, especially people of color, to understand that we deserve our voice to be heard, and that we shouldn't be afraid to give suggestions or assume that someone else will do it.
Bryson, a quick one there, just to compliment it.
All yours.
3 things for me that I heard very clear, right? So be adaptable, adjust. That example that you gave with regards to IT and the call center being able to get out, all of us, it happened in 3 days. 450 people home, plugged in, taking phone calls and didn't miss a beat. But to your point, if there was a recommendation to do that, 2 or 3 years down the road, the no would have come out. But in cross-functional teams, being adaptable, listening to your employees, keeping them engaged, you as leaders still are responsible while all of that churn is taking place. You're responsible for quality controls. You're responsible for customer satisfaction. And you're responsible for the costs in your organization. So always know, while all of those other things are taking place, if I'll stay professional, if something hits the fan, those 3 things, the quality controls, the cost, and customer sat, you will be asked to speak to.
One quote or one principle that we really embraced during the pandemic, and we still fall back on it now, is that healthcare is not a spectator sport, right? You can't sit back and watch the game being played. Healthcare, as is in your industries, in your spaces, you have to roll up your sleeves. And I love that multidisciplinary teamwork approach to it. You know, you're reliant on the other players on the field, in fact, to be successful. And if the players aren't in line, then you don't win the game. And of course, the game is, to your point, Calvin, is, you know, beating out the competition. In healthcare, it's delivering quality healthcare. Marlon, it's, you know, providing a sound and safe, you know, building. So I thank you for that feedback, and I think that's a really good segue into our next question here that I'll pose to the group. And you know, I truly do believe that, especially in healthcare, everyone has the patient's best interest in mind. We come to work with a passion for contributing to not only our communities, but the people who really need help. And all of the operational components that you spoke of are great day-to-day, you know, blocking and tackling. And then you add on some strategy to that, you know, looking forward and making sure that everything you're doing contributes to a vision ultimately. But we see these organizations that are popping up that are outside of a traditional healthcare setting that are leapfrogging the day-to-day operations. You've got your Teslas out there, you've got your Ubers. Obviously, iPhone is a big disruptor. And, you know, I'm really interested to the panelists in hearing, you know, how do we encourage our operational leaders to have that strong operational foundation, but also embrace disruption or not embrace disruption? You know, how do we look outside industry and how do we, you know, play into how that would either help or hurt our work environments? So Marianne, I'm interested in how your take on disruption and how do we really encourage our operational leaders to interact with it?
We actually embrace it. So it's funny. Amazon is a client of ours. So when we think of customer service, we look at USAA. How do we emulate USAA? So when you have the companies that come in and do things differently, you have to figure out, you know, how are you going to compete while staying in your lane? Because you can't do everything, as I said before. The one thing that is very key is when you have a very clear vision and you have goals of what you need to achieve, you then find ways to get it done. So example, we have very lofty performance goals that we want. We can't do it in our current structure, how we currently do things. So we acquired a company that did policies all online. They did your evidence of insurability. It was a startup. They had only been in business 2 years, but we had to get into the middle market. We had to tap into a new market. We didn't have the expertise to that. So we had to go to one of these companies that were new to the industry. We're now doing partnerships with Black-owned insurance companies because we know we have to better get in touch with the community of Black people, honestly, if we're going to continue to grow the business, because it's a market we haven't tapped on for financial security. But in that, we're trying to help shrink that financial divide. Because if you look at the net worth of Black people, especially in New Jersey versus non-Black people in New Jersey, it is unbelievable, the difference. It's like a non-Black person's net worth is $385,000 and a Black person's net worth is $1,600. That's unacceptable. But it goes back to housing. So housing and net worth of the house is how most people get their net value. So when you look at a net worth, so when you look at the systematic things that are in place and you look at something holistically from the top down that aligns with the vision, you can then pick apart where you need to have those disruptors, where you have to, as Calvin say, change the landscape. You have to change the pillar in what you're trying to do to still get to that ultimate goal, but you may change the path and how you get there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you guys are also addressing, you know, some systemic historic gaps that we have in our society as well. So kudos to engaging Black-owned startups there. Very impressive. Calvin, interested in your thoughts on disruption?
Yes, so come at it a little bit different. I'll go back. I think for me, it's always been about being that individual who was willing to participate on process improvement initiatives within the organization. So part of this conversation, I'm sure, is about preparing some of the members and talking about the journey to leadership. And as we know, especially with some of our colleagues who may have been in roles for a number of years, change is not always easy. For me, disruptive change that came out of various types of cross-functional teams that were looking to make processes more efficient and effective was one of the places over the years that I was able to thrive. So two thoughts here. We've got to include everybody, as I said earlier, all levels of the organization in the conversation about being better, about being more effective, about being more efficient, and embracing change. If the decisions about change always happen behind a closed door, and then you bring it out on the operational floor and expect it to be embraced or absorbed, you're going to make a mistake on that front every single time. So from one perspective, if you are already one of the leaders, be sure to include everybody. Include your union leaders, include your supervisors, include all levels. And if you are that person that's on the journey to leadership, be open to participating in those project teams and volunteering to make your skill set known while being a part of establishing change. Last thing, listen to the customer, right? We have heard feedback for years from customers, either during storm time or certain situations when, for whatever reason, something occurred and a customer's lights might be out. We've heard this comment for years, which is, why should I have to call you to tell you that my lights are out, right? So things like that, along with other things, led to the concept of people working towards what they call smart meters. And the industry is actually in the process of changing out the traditional electric and gas meters, and with technology associated with it, two-way technology, that in time we will know whether you're home or not if your service is out. So that's a very disruptive change for our industry. But part of that, came from feedback from customers.
Yeah, and to your point, it's not that complex either, right? You just have to listen to what the people are telling you they need. Marlon, the stage is yours.
Well, I'm gonna take another approach to disruption because I'm in the construction industry, right? Construction industry hasn't changed in decades in terms of the process. People are still swinging a hammer out there every day and using that screw gun. I mean, technology might have changed somewhat, where now we have cordless screw guns, but there's still nails, hammers, those type of things. So when I think of disruption, I think of every day at a construction site, right? It's dynamic, things move. And when things do happen, I think it's how, as a leader, you react to those situations and how your team sees you and how you lead to, learning from those situations and involving a team and problem solving and solutions. And I was having a conversation the other day as someone said to me, I never saw you yell, scream, or or curse anybody out. And I said, why would I do that? What's the purpose? What's the purpose of that? And my team sees that, and it's nothing that I think about every day and say, well, I can't yell because my team's looking at me. It's just something that's innate and something in me. Just give you a little example. I always go to practical examples. I was on a job site and they delivered some light fixtures. They were going to deliver some light fixtures. So I told them you have to be here at 2 o'clock, a certain day, certain time, because everybody leaves. So the driver came at 3 o'clock. I said, I'm sorry, I can't unload you. Everybody's gone. He's like, oh, I'm going to call your office, talk to your boss. I said, all right, 732-627-8300. There until 6 o'clock. Let him know. Marlon Scott, that's my name. So then he called the office, whatever he did. So my boss called me at the time, the VP, and he said, hey, I just want to let you know we're no longer going to do business with that company, delivery company. I said, why? What happened? He's like, oh, I don't want to give you any details, but we're no longer doing business with them. If the guy's there, just tell him to leave. I said, well, just tell me what happened. He said, I told his boss I don't believe in liars, and the guy told me that you cursed him out and you yelled and screamed at him and you called him all kinds of names. And that's when I said, the guy's lying. Thank you for your business, but we're no longer going to deal with you anymore. And reputation precedes you, right? So I know Bryce and Atia, they're on the phone now. If someone would tell him, oh, Marlon cursed this guy out the other day, the first thing is like, Marlon? No, not him. So your reputation precedes you and people are watching. So things do happen. It's how you react to those situations and those disruptions, no matter what industry you're in across the board. And that, again, your reputation precedes you. So think about that the next time something happens and throws you for a loop, as it happens to me every single day on the job site. But you think about your approach, right? And stay calm. Oh, I love that. Your reputation is your personal brand. I'm writing that one down too. Okay. Got a lot of sticky notes here.
Yes. There's a lot of gems in the chat as well. So if you're participating virtually, check some of those out. Marlon, I love what you said. It reminds me of a concept that I've heard in the past before, but it's a leadership thermometer. And effectively, it is how the behavior or attitude of a leader can impact the rest of the team. And I think you spoke to it pretty specifically. I do want to just comment real quick on disruption in our space in healthcare. Transportation is a big barrier to access to care. When I got here to Newark Beth, we essentially had multiple forms of unreliable transportation for our patients, either to get access to the facility or to be discharged home and get out of the building. We had a number of outsourced couriers. Our security officers, surprisingly, were picking patients up and dropping them off. But little known fact is there's a ride sharing app called Uber and Lyft out there who unveiled Uber Health. And so what we've done at Newark Beth is we've opened up an Uber Health account. Social workers, nurses, our emergency department, even our security. We now provide transportation services for patients who otherwise wouldn't have the ability to get to the hospital. And this is a way that, we were able to easily look outside of the hospital, brick and mortar, look to technology to see how we could leverage making an impact to the day-to-day care that we provide. And it has increased our patient satisfaction. It has reduced our no-show rates so that more people are actually getting the care they need. And we've been able to look at the data and find that we've got peaks of times throughout the week. We've been able to work with social work and our scheduling departments to figure out how do we best optimize the tool. All that being said, and long story short, is that there are countless opportunities for our industries and operational leaders to look outside of your industry to see what other people are doing, to see what other industries are embracing for disruption, and see how you can modify and customize those tools to be a differentiator for what you're doing. So I'll end my testimony with that quick story.
You know what, Bryson? I gotta thank you for that. I didn't realize that's what Beth Israel did, because my mother, like, she goes to that hospital. And recently she got picked up and I was like, how did it go? It's like, oh, it's perfect. The guy came up, he's on time. He took me down and picked me up and took me back home. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. She's like, it's a big difference from years ago where I would have to run because the guy didn't show up and pick her up and bring her to the hospital. So I didn't know you implemented that, but thank you, because it's made a big difference in my life, in my mother's life. So I appreciate that.
Oh,
And
that's wonderful.
Marlon, just a quick comment. Bryson just gave you a wraparound service.
You got my Post-it note, wraparound service.
We didn't even plan that, right? That was total coincidence. Oh, that's great. Marlon, thank you. And I'm glad that your mother's able to get access to the services and care that she needs. Listen, I want to be mindful of time. It's 7:02. I want our amazing panelists to be able to share some last gems and wisdom with the audience here. And so, Calvin, I'm going to start with you. What advice can you share for those who aspire to leadership positions in operations? And what would you say they should do to start that journey or continue on that journey?
Would it be okay if I start with what they shouldn't do?
Absolutely.
Don't assume, do not assume because you work hard that makes you qualified for leadership. Do not assume that. And for you leaders out there who are looking for the future leaders, just because someone is the most skilled in a specific department, look beyond that. Look for that individual that's a part of your team that has the capability of being the most skilled in multiple departments. So just be mindful of that. And last thing, for that person that's on the journey, let your leadership team know that you're on the journey. Let them know that you're interested in progressing. Volunteer to participate in various teams that they may have that are helping to advance the mission of the organization. Thank you all.
Thank you, Calvin. Marianne?
Well, for me, it's self-reflection. You definitely have to think about what you want, because we go into these careers and we're like, this is what I want to do, and then we end up not liking something. And be willing to pivot and to move when you need to move. But part of that means you really do have to sit down and think about, what are my priorities? What's most important to me? What do I want to achieve? And sometimes you're going to have to take laterals to get the diverse and the transferable skills to get you upward. So don't be afraid to take a lateral, but again, it has to be one that is going to get you to your ultimate goal. I have a lot of people on my team, even we went through these rounds of promotions, and a lot of the candidates said, I put everything down to realize what I really wanted and what was important to me. And money is important, but flexibility was far more important to them. The ability to have work-life balance, the ability to not be micromanaged. You have to think, because sometimes it's not just about the title or the money, it's about the peace of mind in getting to that end road, when you get there, you actually like where you are.
Thank you. Marlon?
I knew it. You made me follow Marianne again. And Calvin. I said, please don't let me go after her. What do I have? So I have get involved, right? Like Calvin said, I work hard. I mean, I worked hard. I put my heart and soul every day. And I never realized, like Calvin said, just based on that, you don't get a promotion. That's not how it works. So get involved. And when I started getting involved with the company and being open to different opportunities, when people would say, Marlon, I think you would do good in this role. And instead of saying, no, that's not for me, just take it. They're asking you to do it because they see something in you and they know you can succeed, and that's why they're asking you to do it. And then just the last piece, talk about leadership. And, probably most everyone on this call are leaders, and, to be a leader, sometimes you are, and we all are, maybe visionaries. And the difficulty of being a visionary is you see things that other people don't see. And when you, it could be so frustrating because it's like, why can't this person see that it's unsafe to do this? Or why can't my team see that, we're more efficient if we do that? That visionary allows you to see not into the future, but see things that people don't see. And it could be frustrating every day. But when you get to that point, it comes with responsibilities too, being visionaries. When you come to that point, just think about, seeing that vision and dealing with that every day is something that everyone can't do. So just wake up in the morning, like walk out your door, know what your vision is, be confident in what you're doing, and just try to make that happen every day. So I applaud all the visionaries on this call and the leaders on this call, and so good luck.
Can I make one more point? Because Marlon, you gave me a gem now.
Oh boy.
You did. The other piece of that is accountability. Have accountability for yourself.
Right.
Like there is a training I'm getting ready to pay for out of my pocket because I want it for me so I can be a better leader. I can be a better coach. Now, I can probably get my company to pay for it, but it's for my own development. So I don't need to have to justify why I want to do it. So have that accountability for yourself as well, because your manager cannot read your mind, and ultimately be kind. Like, it's easy to be nice. Nice is the nice words, like, hey, how you doing? Hey, kind is the actionable things. Like, you know what, let me get that for you. Let me see, can I find out? It's no different than if you have the healthcare worker who's like, you know what, let me go get the wheelchair to help you to get that point. Not let me just make a call. So don't be afraid to be kind, because that goes a long way, because you never know who's watching you when you don't realize that you're even seen.
Visionary. That's what I'm talking about. Take that class.
I couldn't agree more, and I will piggyback off of that, Marianne, and just share one of my favorite quotes from Edith Wharton, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner. And that quote is, there's two ways of spreading light. You can be the candle, or you can be the mirror that reflects it. And that's directly in line with just being kind. But my translation of being a light is bringing people up behind you. And training the next generation, and mentoring and teaching, because we all didn't get here by our own devices. It was someone else who brought us up along the path and paved the way. So I truly do appreciate all of you for blazing a trail tonight, for our audience, for contributing to our NASI family. And I hope that as a panelist, you got something out of this too. And I think by the head nods, you all did, but truly just an honor and a privilege to be able to have this dialogue with you all today. Thank you all for the questions. And I think I'm going to formally hand it off to Moses, who's going to facilitate the Q&A. Wonderful dialogue. Panelists, thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Awesome. Bryson, awesome job. Thank you so much for moderating tonight. Our panelists, as always, thank you for being a part of this. We have a few questions. I want to encourage everyone that's here attending, if you do have any questions you would like to ask, please post it in the chat. The first question that I had that came in that was DM'd to me was, how do you approach an employee or colleague who is resistant to change? So if any one of you want to take a stab at that, to answer that, how do you approach an employee or a colleague who is resistant to change?
I'll take that, with good intent. That is how you approach them, with good intent. Remember when I said earlier, before you go into any conversation, ask yourself, what is the objective of me giving this message? But then it goes back to the brand, as Marlon said, people have to know that you're approaching them with good intent. So so you have to know your brand. The third thing is, if you are not that person, don't try to be that person that person may receive. So I know we have some people, and sometimes it's not me that can give that message. I have to go to a colleague to say, hey, I need your help. Here is what we're trying to navigate. For me, it's received differently. Can you do it for me? But you start with, hey, this is why I'm coming to you. What is it wrong that they resist change? One, because you have to let them know that they're resisting a change. But two, what are the concerns with them resisting that change? So again, once you start going into something with the objective of the end of the message, you can create the narrative of how that person will receive that, and ultimately know your audience. So know who that person is and try to anticipate what you may need. I had a boss that whenever I would say anything, he would ask me the questions of what I already laid out. And it used to drive me absolutely insane. So what I started to do is write down what I thought his questions would be, write down the answers, go in with my script. And the fifth time he did it, I said, can we stop for a minute? I said, what did you hear me say? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, I work very hard to communicate well with you and anticipate what you may need, because I respect you as a leader and I respect your time. However, when I go through what I think you need and I have the questions written down and the answers, you ask me the questions anyway. So is it that I'm not presenting them in a way that you receive them? Am I missing something? Are you giving me a nugget or a nudge that I need to go a little deeper? What is it? He said, you didn't answer my questions. And I turned my script around. And when he saw it, he's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. My wife tells me I never listen. Best boss I had up until the one I have right now, but best boss I had after that. We worked very well together. He was so resistant to hearing other people. Like he wasn't listening. He was listening with already his questions in his head, not understanding I'm already answering those questions. So you gotta know and you gotta pay attention. So when you look around and you start to realize, like, why is this not working? You have to devise a communication strategy to get to that point. It's not always easy though. So sometimes you're gonna have to put the work in.
Great points. Great points.
Walk the mile in their shoes. And what I mean by that is there is probably something that is causing them to be resistant. So you have to be willing to take the time to have the conversation as many times as you need to, for as long as you need to, until you're able to hear the obstacle.
Thank you, Calvin. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. That was a bring it to a close. All good.
Awesome. Marlon, I have a question that came in that's directed for you, since you are in construction, very deadline oriented, goal oriented. Has your team ever struggled to meet a business goal or deadline? And how did you address that?
Oh, all the time. Struggle every day. Right. That's life, right? You have challenges, you have struggles. So I think, again, like I was saying, in terms of leader, this how do you bounce back and how do you adapt and how do you attack those struggles, right? And you have to be able to pivot and make those changes, because if you keep making the same mistakes, then you're not learning anything. So I would say that, yes, it happens all the time, and you learn from it, you develop a strategy, and then you just attack it. And that's at life. That's everything. Not just construction. That's everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have another question. I actually want to give this one to Calvin to start. It's from Naomi. What is the biggest challenge you are facing today as a leader?
I would say ensuring that the board that I currently have understands the importance of equity and economic empowerment. So there's a certain threshold within our foundation that requires approval from the Board of Trustees.
Mm.
So as I stated to you earlier, we implemented new pillars a year and a half ago. And some of those pillars is very clear that they are there to help uplift underserved communities. Not everybody that we work with is about that. So that's probably the biggest challenge that I have being in philanthropy at this particular time.
Awesome. Marianne, would you like to chime in on that question? What's the biggest challenge you're facing today as a leader?
The Great Resignation.
I think a lot of us are dealing with that. Absolutely.
Resource constraints, how to be creative when I don't have somebody to do a project. How do you prioritize it? And how do you keep your staff's best interest in mind in their career development? That is the hardest thing for me right now, that balance to make sure. I believe in win-win-win, not just win-win. So it needs to be a win for the company, a win for the community, a win for the individual. How do you do that delicate balance? And it has been exhausting. We have been in interviews exhausting. We ended up promoting a lot of people internally, which meant I did not get a new body on my team. So I still have the same resource constraint. So now to backfill them, I have to go through a whole different set of interviews. So I ask that when people are on a team like that, be patient. Be patient with your leader. We going through a lot. And just that is very difficult right now because I don't think we were prepared for it. We weren't prepared for this many people leaving. Now for us in my team, we didn't have a lot of people leave the company. They left our department to go to different departments and got promotions. So we applaud them, but having them tell us in advance was key. And that goes back to that emotional connection. So with that and those resources, the resource constraints and the Great Resignation, when you have the relationships with people, you can see it coming so you can start to hedge some of this stuff. Right. So it's just, that is the hardest thing I got going on right now, though.
Gotcha. And the last question that I have for each of you, I'll have Marlon start off. As it is Women's History Month, is there a woman in throughout history or someone personal to you that has impacted your life in a certain way? And what did you learn from them that has helped you navigate your career thus far? Just one thing. It could be a historical figure, could be a relative, a friend. Who in your life has made an impact for you? And what was that one thing that has helped you along in your career?
I got two, right? So one, I got to say, it's my wife because it's her birthday today, and she allowed me to still come and sit on this panel. So thank God for her, and I can still go upstairs and have some cake. And the second one is my mother, right? So I've seen my mother. She was a seamstress in a warehouse when I was younger. I've seen her catch the bus in the morning, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, come home at 5 in the afternoon. And that work ethic that I saw from her, getting off the bus with groceries, she's walking blocks away to get to our apartment. But that work ethic that I saw from her and that what she instilled with me, never giving up and just believe in yourself, I think that attributes to my entire success as not just in business, but as a man, as a husband, as a father, and as a role model. So it's my mother, hands down, all day, no doubt.
Awesome. Thank you, Marlon. I'll turn it over to Calvin.
Same two, mother and wife. So my mother also worked for public service as a retiree from public service. But one of the things that I watched her do my entire life was go out of her way to get people employed at public service. I mean, I couldn't give you the number, right? But she was always about lift as we climb, always about uplift. My wife's an educator, executive director, superintendent of a charter school district. And I watched her throughout her career navigate the politics in the school systems where the decision-making and the conversation is not always about the best interest of children learning.
Mm.
And that constant struggle there. So those would be my two.
Absolutely. Thank you, Calvin. And Marianne, I turn it over to you to answer that last question.
So mine would be my mother as well. And her sister. But my mom is one of the hardest workers. What she taught me is you treat everybody fairly and equitable, and don't believe your own hype. That's what she taught me. Don't believe your own hype. Understand we all put our pants on the same way, and you treat everybody like they're human beings, because what their title is in that office doesn't mean what their title is outside. So stop it. So she taught me that very, very early. And my mother is so ingrained as part of my life that for my birthday, my team came and dropped off a gift for me. And they dropped off flowers for my mother with a card that says, thank you for giving us her. Everything she exudes is because of you. And my mom is 81 and cried like a baby. But that's how important she is to me. Her sister is the same way. That's my other mother, no matter what. And she taught me, for the last 20 years, has made dinners for senior citizens at Thanksgiving. And she's 84 and she's still doing it out of her own pocket. She said, you never have too little. She said, but you can always have too much. What you need to understand is you need to strike that balance. And if you're not hungry, then no one else should be. So let's make sure that we do what we need to do. That community thought and community thinker, we didn't have a choice in my family. It was, you do what you need to do. It's not just about you, it's about us all. So, but again, my family's from the South. So it's always been like that, because if we didn't depend on each other, there were very few other people you can depend on. So just know that you're not an island, and that it is very important that you leave a legacy. And it's not just the children you birth, it's the work that you do.
Definitely. To our panelists, thank you. You guys each were amazing tonight. You guys each gave us some nuggets, some gems. Can we get some love in the chat for them? Let us send a big thank you to all of our panelists, Marlon, Calvin, Marianne. Thank you for being with us. The RSVPs went out were the highest we ever had in a while. So it shows that there was an interest in tonight, and you guys really, I believe, met a lot of everyone's desires and the nuggets and knowledge they want to learn about operations. So once again, thank you. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Frank Nelson, the president of NASI New Jersey chapter, who will close us out tonight. Thank you.
Wow. What an incredible panel and discussion. Really want to echo Moses' sentiments, and on behalf of our chapter, just want to thank all of our panelists. Really had a wonderful discussion, and we're really thinking about how we can bring this group back for a follow-up conversation at some point later this year, really, because we all really enjoy this conversation. In the interest of time, just want to thank you all. I'd like to thank all the members and everyone else who has joined tonight and had decided to spend this time with us, really engaging and having part of this conversation. And certainly, last but not least, we certainly want to take the time to thank our leadership team. If you have not yet met everyone from our leadership team, please go online and on nasinewjersey.org. All of our members are listed there. We just want to thank their efforts and everyone who's contributed to making this event possible tonight. Really enjoyed the points, learned a great deal, had 3 pages worth of notes, so we'll make sure that we have a follow-up and have a conversation as we move forward. So thank you all. Hope you all have a wonderful evening, and definitely look forward to your engagement in future events. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right, take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Later.